The Fantastic Four is truly a wholesome film about this family of characters. The actors and direction is top-notch, with sci-fi elements that are unseen in the MCU, a god-tier villain in Galactus, and another Michael Giacchino masterclass with a score. It's a great film. Today, we are going to discuss why The Fantastic Four First Steps is a great MCU film, to see what Matt Shakman has done to bring this team to life, with so many great moments, but also some small things that could have been better. This video will be spoiler-free, but let's talk about this film in full detail.
Okay.
The basic premise of this film is we follow the Fantastic Four in a retro-futuristic 1960s. The team are living their best lives being celebrated on the planet as we see this team go up against Galactus and fight to protect the world. In its simplest form, that's what this film is. But, have you ever seen anything like this in the MCU? No, we haven't. That alone makes it one of the most unique MCU films, because this film takes place in an alternate universe. Like I said, it's retro 1960s, it fully leans into that futurism type setting perfectly that it makes it feel so different. Now, it's not like totally in that setting because New York in certain areas looks pretty standard, but outside that, this world looks so different. The locations look so different. It's pretty inviting and I really like that. The way this film details sci-fi elements and its story feels unseen before. Not that we haven't seen stories like this before, but in the MCU it feels fresh. At times it feels like I picked up Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's run for the first time. Now, I don't think everyone's gonna love the way it was handled, as it's not afraid to get into the weird. Unlike past films that were embarrassed to even be a comic book movie, it takes that risk. It goes all in and it won't be for everyone. But that's what I love about this film. It isn't afraid to embrace the weird with its sci-fi elements. Matt Shakman clearly went into making this film with a lot of sci-fi nature that isn't afraid. It's just like when the Fantastic Four were introduced for the first time. Most sci-fi films tackle what happens when our fears of the unknown become a reality. But instead of doing that, they embraced that instead and went ahead with it. Since we mentioned the director, let's talk about what Matt Shakman did with this film. I don't know what it was, but I just had a gut feeling he was gonna crush it. Did he? Yes, he did. Considering this is the first feature film he has shot in decades, this is some real impressive stuff. When we hear about a director or writer taking on a project like this, it often can be scary. You never know what will happen, good or bad. But I remember at San Diego Comic-Con last year when he talked about Fantastic Four, I just knew he was born to direct this film. But most importantly, he just brings these characters to life and does justice to them perfectly. He actually made them a family here, which is a huge plus for me. Not only does he have the style the Fantastic Four needs, but he also has the right amount of balance needed. He brings a fantastical nature, but doesn't let the serious moments go unnoticed. But as everything picks up, it switches up completely, going in a different direction. Marvel can be known for having serious moments undercut by jokes. Here, it's basically the exact opposite, and once the Silver Surfer arrives, it turns into a dark and dreadful tone. All hope is lost, and you feel the struggle throughout. There isn't a lot of action here. It's just these characters trying to figure out how to stop Galactus. To some, I can see some people thinking this movie is boring, but it hones in on so many things very well that I was really impressed. Michael Giacchino returns to the Marvel family for this film after he did the Spider-Man movies and Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, this may be recency bias, but I think this is his best MCU score by a mile, maybe even a top 5 MCU score. I am not saying this is his best score because that goes to the Batman and I will not hear otherwise, but this score feels so magical. It's like listening to the Incredible score, which funny enough, he did that too, just with a more futuristic setting. When his name was announced at San Diego Comic-Con last year, I was just hyped to hear it, and hearing that at D23, oh my god. And just seeing it on film, it is so inviting. He just cooked up such a nice score that just fits this team so well. It truly feels like the definitive Fantastic Four score, and I love that. The pacing of this story surprisingly works nicely. I was a bit worried by this, as when tickets went on sale, it was 2 hours and 10 minutes, but Marvel being, well, Marvel, changed that to 1 hour and 55 minutes. Now, is this a big deal? Yes and no. Because while runtime doesn't make it bad, most MCU films at this runtime are just meh or mid at best. So I was a bit worried about what this film could be. But this is a rare instance where that just wasn't the case at all. While some elements could have been used a bit more, overall I think this pacing was the best it could have been, giving us enough to make us feel satisfied with a given runtime. The characters of this film really stand out, specifically the team and especially the villains. Each character fills the story nicely and gives a reason for why it works. The one I was most curious about was Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, not the one I was most excited for, but the one I was most cautious about. I was not a fan of his casting when it was first announced, but it was really one scene in the trailers when someone asked Reed, "Are we safe?" and Reed goes, goes, I don't know. This is such a great scene because it shows you that even though Reed is the smartest man alive, he isn't perfect. Pedro brings this level of vulnerability to the character that was needed, but also this level of intellect and leadership as well. Oftentimes it's castings we never think of that feel wrong, but when you see them in action and you realize how perfect it really is, it's no different here. What Pedro did here was just incredible. I will say, I do wish we saw more of his powers, but overall, his character works really well. The one I was most looking forward to was Sue Storm, as this is my favorite member of the team and I just love Vanessa Kirby. While the previous Invisible Women are fine, I guess, this one is just on a different level. Truly a three-dimensional character. What Vanessa Kirby brought to this role was amazing. Easily my favorite character of the entire story. Her chemistry with not only Pedro, but the rest of the team as well makes you buy into this character even more. Even the plot with Franklin is done so well. She brings this soul to the film. It just works so well throughout its entire runtime. Not to mention her powers look awesome, so it's so good. Now, I mentioned earlier that when it came to the casting of Pedro as Reed, I was worried. Well, the same thing applies to Joseph Quinn as Human Torch. Don't get it twisted, overall they nailed the castings, but this was just one that made me scratch my head. Then I saw him do interviews and I grew to really like him. Is he better than Chris Evans? No, he isn't. But he still adds a lot to this character that we haven't seen before. One thing I love is that they made him a bit more than this womanizer and hothead. That element is still there, but I never liked how that was all he was in the OG films. And this film does a good job in subverting that notion. They made him smarter. He isn't just this hothead and acts like an idiot. He knows the science. He knows what he's doing. He's definitely the most entertaining and surprising of the three. When it comes to the Thing, this is one overall I am happy with, but there is some issues that I will save for later. I love the design of the character. I remember when this was revealed and people hated it, and I just do not get it. They actually found the perfect rock while in pre-production, which I think is so cool. Ebon Moss-Backrack, aka Richie, does a really great job bringing this character to life. One thing I really like is that Ebon is Jewish, just like Ben Grimm. Marvel normally doesn't do this either. It adds a real side to the character. Performance-wise, I think he does the best emotionally. There is a lot of great moments where he just looks at himself like a freak. You really buy into this character and his relationship that he has in the team. How he thinks and how he acts, it just works so well. But then there's Galactus. Oh my god. Galactus. Finally, not some big cloud in a real-life planet eater. Because this dude is an ultimate Marvel villain. I would argue this is one of the best the MCU has had to date. This isn't a spoiler since it was in the trailers, but he finds Earth due to Reed sending a signal out into the galaxy. Whether it's just speaking to the team or stepping foot on Earth, there's just this presence that is felt. To say that Ralph Ensign didn't deliver would be a flat-out lie. It also really helps that Shakman's direction makes every scene he's in feel so epic. When the team goes up into space and they meet Galactus, it is so dreadful. That scene alone makes you feel 10 times more invested by the film's end. Frankly, if that scene doesn't hook you in, I don't know what will. The final character was Shala Ball's Silver Surfer. I actually really like this character a bit. Could she do more? Yes. But I'll be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it overall. I love what Julia Garner did with this role, and she was great. She delivers these lines with such power that I was totally okay with this. Fantastic Four truly delivers a great film, with direction that just fits the tone and world so well, amazing music, along with performances, and characters that are truly fantastic.
Say that again?
It is the Fantastic Four movie we have been waiting for. But let's not pretend this film doesn't have issues. This film is great, do not get that twisted. But just because you're a great film doesn't mean you're perfect. Does this film have a lot of issues? Absolutely not. Just enough to the point where it is a bit noticeable. The biggest issue this film has is its CGI in certain amounts of the film. Don't get it twisted, there are a lot of shots that look great, but for every great shot, there are god-awful CGI in this film. Marvel quite literally filmed this movie the moment it was a year from release, which I really didn't like. To put into comparison, when Fantastic Four started filming is when Superman finished filming. It is one of my issues. There can be rushed things, but I'll get to that in my next issue. Is the CGI overall trash? No. What it creates isn't god-awful Flash level CGI, but just some shots that look off like with some shots with The Thing. But more importantly, the CGI Franklin Richards. It is insane how bad that looks. I understand why because of laws around filming with babies, but come on, man, at least try and make it look good. The script didn't feel up to par. It felt incomplete in certain areas. This is something Ebon said in an interview, saying, don't think the script was ready at the time we started. So we sort of workshopped the movie in a way. We were doing a lot of shared research, talking to astronauts and scientists and watching a lot of Apollo footage together. So Marvel literally went into this movie without a proper script, which again is just odd considering how big this film is. Now, this is a Marvel problem in general. Doomsday and Spider-Man are doing the same thing, but I hate this practice. While I get Marvel wants to move quickly so they can make content, I don't think sacrificing that over quality is a good thing. It doesn't ruin the film. What it does is make things like the characters lack in many places. It's easily a problem that one day is not gonna work. Speaking of the characters, that is another issue I have. Since this film is an origin story, we just go straight into the action. Now, That part is not a bad thing. That was a great decision. We have seen that origin done twice this decade. We don't need it again. The problem is that because of that, some characters, specifically the villains, get shafted. Mainly characters like Mole Man were not given enough time to shine. It's not like a deal breaker or anything, but a lot of characters do feel forced in. Even outside that, the Think who at times can feel underused, which is a problem given how big the character is. Besides Sue, he is really the heart and soul of the team, so not using him as much is an issue. However, at the same time, I can see them exploring this more in future movies, so it's not the end of the world. Look, Fantastic Four is a great film. When the film works, it really does work. But there are things that can be an issue, mainly with the story and certain characters, that make this film great, but not perfect. In terms of the future of the MCU, it both sets it up and not at the same time. There is a post-credit scene that teases the upcoming Avenger films. At the same time, this feels very standalone overall. The MCU has gotten back to their roots in a way, besides a few things. This film feels 90% its own thing, but you have a good amount of setup towards the future. The rest is a standalone film. Not to mention, what they did set up was kind of expected by a lot of us. It is important to the MCU, absolutely, but if you just want to watch this film as its own thing and enjoy it for what it is, you can do that too. To compare it to the last MCU film, Thunderbolts, while that film also is very standalone, it is very much a setup. Way more than Fantastic Four is. The idea of this film being set in its own world really helps out with this a lot. Now, where does the team go next? We know that they are going to be in the next Avengers films. Rita is even set to be one of the main characters, which makes sense given the connection between him and Doctor Doom. Sue, Johnny, and Ben are all expected to appear as well, so I would assume they also have a big role, and we know that we are supposed to see this world again in Doomsday at some point. Pedro Pascal has also teased a sequel, which, let's be real, it's Marvel. I would be surprised if a sequel didn't happen. I would love for them to keep going to the sci-fi area, as that's where I think this team works best. But given we know that a reboot is happening, I would love to see them adjust to a new world. Either way, a sequel has so much potential. This is easily the best Fantastic Four movie, even though that bar is incredibly low. I have never been crazy about the past films. The OG films are okay, I guess, and then we have whatever this is. So I was never hoping for this to be the best MCU film. I was hoping for it to be the definitive Fantastic Four film. And to say this film isn't that would just be a flat out lie. It truly is the Fantastic Four film we have been waiting for. This film is a great film, even with its minor flaws. It nails the core elements of these characters with fantastic performances, direction that makes this world feel epic, a tone that makes it feel like the most serious MCU film that anyone expected, and a score that is one of the MCU's best, making this a great Fantastic Four movie. So guys, what did you guys think of Fantastic Four? Let me know in those comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. We got a big video on Phase 5 coming up now that Phase 6 has begun, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. But until next time, take care.